The Army has been talking for many years about the concept of a single IT network, but it's made real, measurable progress recently. The service started with 42 networks, then reduced the number to 19, and then just to 5 over the last few years. At the same time, the Army is moving toward more software-defined networks. Leo Garciga is the Army's Chief Information Officer. He talked about these initiatives with Federal News Network's Jason Miller.
This next piece is the one that's a little bit more intriguing and fun to watch. It's where we've made some very big corporate decisions on capabilities and platforms. And as we kind of work with a PO enterprise and a software engineering center to stand up this idea of a low code, no code center of excellence, is having platforms that are SaaS providers or PaaS in our environment, like a Salesforce or an Appian or SAP, making sure that we're making those available at an enterprise level. Reducing platform sprawl, which I think is a new shadow IT, right, which gets really expensive. And the other piece to that is giving everyone a level playing field to start from. And look, Jason, here's the big piece to this. I keep telling everyone, we've already learned in cloud that by having that foundation of a cloud landing zone, all of this work that, program managers and commands used to have to do for cybersecurity, for just running the enterprise, kind of were taken off their plate. I think this next level is, as we move up platforms, is making sure that we start making it even easier to get capability out. And I think we're seeing that with some of our folks that are using these platforms on their ability to get capability out in weeks, sometimes days, versus months and years.
Leo, I want to come back to this idea of the platforms and ECMA, but let me just go one last thing on cybersecurity. One of the things you mentioned was some new authority to operate guidance, moving toward this idea of continuous ATOs. I think back in January, you mentioned this is at the Department of War CIO. You were hopeful to get it finally approved. Any updates you can give us? Are you any closer to it, or is it still the ubiquitous soon?
No, we're in a great spot, actually. So a couple of things have happened since we last talked. So I think when we last spoke, we were at 2 folks inside the Army had gone through our internal process, kind of the policy that the department's looking at right now to implement as a department-wide policy. We've got 2 more, so we've got 4. So we've got 4 of those that are up there right now with the Department of War CIO team. As of Friday of last week, my understanding is they were looking for one more little piece to get us there, but I make a commitment to come back to you and tell you as soon as that's done. But from my perspective right now, we have 4 approved CATO pipelines inside the United States Army, 1 at a command and 3 of them at program offices. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
The long-term goal is to have what? Like have as many CATO, which are talking about pipelines as possible. So we're talking about DevSecOps. We're talking about what when you say pipeline, that's what comes to mind first.
Yeah. So I think our goal is to make sure that we have the right DevSecOps pipelines that are approved across the United States Army, and that folks are making use of those and making sure they're available so folks can move more into continuous delivery of software in a secure way versus the more traditional, like, hey, we'll build some software, we'll use some tools, and we'll still have humans look at it. I think really our big thing is how much can we automate and triage and leverage AI to really increase speed. And I think we're seeing folks who do have their pipelines approved doing all of that, right? Really reducing the time it takes for humans to do review, right? Finding cybersecurity flaws a lot faster. And then the other piece, which I think is the most important still, is can we get that capability into the hands of warfighters a lot quicker than we are today?
Leo, all reporters love numbers. Any data you can share saying, hey, when we looked at these 4 pipelines, it's gone from the typical approval was 90 days, now it's 30 days. And anything you can give us?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So here's what I would say. Probably the pipeline that we're seeing the most success from is one where we actually have hardware in the middle, which is really interesting, a slightly different approach than what most people are seeing. They went from only being able to do like really 2 development efforts at the same time to deliver onto the platform. They're now running 23 simultaneous development efforts through that pipeline. And I know the last work that they did, they went from what would have normally taken them about 30, 45 days to deliver in the more traditional way to about a week. So I think we're seeing that progress. And then some of the other capabilities that we have, especially with some of our folks at our cyber, right? That I can tell you right now, they are deploying code in real time onto our defensive cyber operating platform like fully accredited with little human review on a daily basis.
And when we come back around to what this means, it's not just, hey, we're doing things faster, but to your point, speed to capability. If they went from running the one platform, two development efforts at the same time to 23, that means you're getting 21 more capabilities out to the warfighter. And to be clear, a capability could be, hey, just a +1 of a system that now does this thing versus it didn't do this thing, right? I mean, we're not talking about major development all the time, but even the little things matter.
Yeah, it's all those incremental changes, right? I think that traditionally what we saw was, these huge backlogs that would be created and we'd write, some 80-page document somewhere that maybe I read, right? That would turn into capability, through the bureaucratic process, as opposed to now where you have that real tight coupling between, what the requirement owner needs back to the developers. And we can see a lot of those changes happening in real time on the network in a safe way straight to production. So I'm with you, right? I think it's the gaining of capacity, right? If anything, to deliver capability that really matters in this space.
People have been hearing about the concerns about the threats, the increasing threats, the faster threats, the 0 days. So if you're able to deploy code on defensive cyber operations on a daily basis, that means that gives our cyber and therefore the Army more broadly the ability to keep up with those threats as they come versus always being reactive. They can almost be a little more proactive as well.
Yeah, I think if anything, that we've got a lot of feedback on that over the last couple of months on just the ability to get out in front of threats as we see them, and the ability in the existing software code that we have just to instantaneously see it versus where we were maybe 3-4 years ago, where we're still relying on the more traditional reporting mechanisms to come back and inform a PM or inform a development team. Right now, those teams are seeing it in real time and they're able to react in time and space. That makes a lot more sense to mitigate those risks. I think the other piece is giving us the ability to be a little bit proactive on our mitigations, right? Because we can see the larger threat landscape, which has been really important. I always talk to folks about rethinking cyber in the terms of it being a terrain that we manage and own, right? And now we can really see some fidelity in that terrain versus kind of the traditional thing is, did you fill out this paperwork that maybe was filled out a year ago and may or may not be accurate at this point?
That's Leo Garciga, the Army's Chief Information Officer. You can catch his full conversation with Jason Miller on an encore presentation of our annual DoD Modernization Exchange happening today at federalnewsnetwork.com.